Hi, and welcome to the Pit Lane, a Formula One podcast where we talk about everything Formula One. In this episode, we'll be discussing the Chinese Grand Prix, which is hosting the first sprint race of this season. I'm your host, Jordan Wynn, and alongside me is my co-host, Alden Kaywell. How are you doing today, Alden?
I'm doing very well, Jordan. It's good to see you again.
Yeah. We got some news to start with.
Two big news items.
Yeah. The 2025 schedule was released. Some highlights with there is Australia is the opener. How do you feel about that?
Very happy to see Australia be the opening race weekend for 2025. It's been a while since they've been the opening weekend. I think it was right around the time of COVID where Bahrain took over, and it made sense. Bahrain's been a good steward. It's not a terrible track. They do a lot of the testing there, so it's made sense for them to just stay there after testing and then do the first weekend there. But if we're choosing just out of all the tracks that should be the opener, it should be Australia. So good to have them back being the opening race weekend of the year.
Yeah, we're definitely happy about that. The Middle East schedule with Bahrain and Saudi was moved as well to post-Asia, quote-unquote, so post-Japan and China because of Ramadan, which affected it this year, correct?
Yeah, that's a good change. It's important to make sure that the places you're visiting are willing and able to come see your race. And it just means that they don't have to amend their TV schedules either for the Western audiences. So
right, because this year the Middle East races, the early ones were on Saturday versus Sunday, because I think Ramadan started on the Sunday of the first post Saudi Arabia, I believe.
Yeah,
or something weird.
It was an awkward situation.
Yeah.
But this is fine.
Yeah.
This works out.
It works.
Hopefully it's not too hot, that quote unquote late into the year.
Yeah, it'll be about a month behind its quote unquote norm.
Okay. Because I remember some of the older races when we were going to Bahrain were very hot because they also did it during the day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They haven't done that in a while.
Jeddah's by the ocean, so maybe it won't be too.
Yeah, that sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't be too hot. But it's a good calendar. That other than those changes, I think there's no other real differences.
I don't think so. Not from current 2024 calendar to the 2025. There were some changes to this year's calendar.
Right, like Baku
kind of at the end
moved with Japan.
Yes.
And then Qatar moved behind Las Vegas.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Brazil got moved earlier. Well, it's still after Mexico, but it was kind of part of that reshuffle.
Okay.
With Vegas, because Vegas was a weird thing last year.
Yeah. Where they went to the Middle East, came all the way back to Las Vegas, and then went back to the Middle East.
Was that what it was? Something like that.
So, or maybe they went down to Brazil.
Then back to Vegas, then back to Middle East. Yeah. I don't know. It was nuts. Didn't make a whole lot of sense, but seems like we got a pretty good calendar. It's the same tracks as this current year.
Same number of events as well, 24.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
We would have preferred that number to go down.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a team standpoint. As a spectator standpoint,
I mean, some of these races at Miami aren't worth watching anyway.
You're just slaying Miami right off the bat before we even get there.
Yeah. No, of course.
I don't blame you.
That race is whatever. We'll get there.
Silly season has started. Fernando Alonso re-signed his contract.
Silly season has restarted.
Sorry, has restarted.
After the whole Lewis thing.
It's never ended.
Correct.
Alonso resigns with Aston through 2026.
At least.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
It's good news for Aston. They're going to the Honda power unit in 2026, which will be big. Remember the GP2 engine comments? Clearly that's water under the bridge at this point. Maybe not. Maybe he has to publicly apologize on the radio the first race.
Yeah, we'll see. GP1 engine, race one, huh?
GP1. But yeah, so Alonso resigns. No other news with driver signings, but there's been a lot of talk about obviously where Carlos Sainz is going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, Lance Stroll is staying is obviously the kind of comments because his dad owns the team.
Well, will he after this weekend?
Well, we'll get into that later, I guess.
This is a good re-signing for Aston Martin.
Yep.
Alonso is someone you know, clearly the best driver for your car, brings in sponsorship and viewership, and just re-sign him. Give him what he wants.
Yeah, he's at the ripe old age of I think 42.
Almost 43 was the commentators this weekend were saying.
Yeah, so he's at least going until he's 44, 45.
And I mean, my reading of this is that he's going to drive the Aston Martin Formula One car until 2026. And then after that, he will either be a brand ambassador or race other vehicles that Aston Martin will make in other series after.
Sure.
So
he did make the comments that it was the longest contract he has signed.
Right, which 2 years is not very long. I know he signed a longer contract than that because he was at Ferrari for 4 years.
Yeah.
So
right,
he must have signed a pretty long contract with them to do more than
whatever
just wear sunglasses.
Yeah, and I don't think Aston's going to Indy, which would be interesting.
Yeah, he's been there and done that. I think he wants to race
but he didn't have the best engine at the time, which was the Honda engine, which is what he was trying to go to. Just saying.
I think
but
he'll
there
try
was
and do
qualms
something
there.
like GT3 or
just
kind of like...
It'd be fun to see him in a sports car.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun, actually.
It'd just be like 3 minutes out in front.
Yeah. Would be fun to see. I just watched a highlight of him at, I think I was browsing YouTube and I think it was what's the World Championship or something?
The
Race of Nations.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It was like 2001.
Oh, my.
Race of Nations, and then he's like in a rally car and he wins it for his team or whatever.
Must have been like 16.
It was like his first F1 season or second. Yeah, it was pretty funny to see, but it's like, oh, yep, he dominated that too.
Dude can race.
Let's get into the weekend, though.
A busy weekend.
Yes, we had a sprint weekend this weekend in China, and it was Guan Yu Zhou's home race. Yep. Zhou Guan Yu. Sorry, I don't know which direction it's supposed to go.
Zhou Guan Yu.
My apologies. Zhou Guan Yu. Home race for him. It was his third season in Formula One, yet this is the first time in China because all the COVID restrictions and all that stuff. So it's fun to see him there.
It was more than fun.
Yeah.
It was a great sight.
Yeah, it was a good showing for the crowd.
Yeah.
Big time. We can get into that a little bit later, how it kind of ended. But it was very cool to...
he seemed excited. The fans seemed excited. And it was just like this great atmosphere of excitement built around him being there and having a good time. And it's what it looked like happened.
Right. He was the first Chinese driver ever in Formula One.
Yes.
So clearly it's the first Chinese home race for an F1 driver.
Ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. But we can get into kind of the layout here. It's a first sprint weekend. This weekend they did some rearranging this year. You had FP1 to start things off, followed by the sprint qualifying, followed by the sprint race the next day, which then after that was qualifying for the race.
Okay.
Then the race was on the Sunday.
All right. So Friday we had FP1 and sprint qualifying.
Correct.
Day done. Then on Saturday we had the sprint race first, then qualifying for the race itself on Saturday evening.
Yep.
Or whatever.
Yep.
And then Sunday morning...
Or afternoon was the race, the regular
race.
Yep.
All right. And if I remember correctly, there are now, with this new format that we just went over there, there's 2 Parc Fermes.
Correct. So you clearly have your FP1, and then qualifying you have to be set up for. That's your first Parc Ferme. For the sprint race.
Yep.
Then you have your sprint race. After the sprint race, you are then
change things again.
Yes, then you are allowed to make whatever changes you want, obviously within the regulations, blah, 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 normal stuff. For regular qualifying,
Parc Ferme starts again.
And then you get into the race. So you don't have kind of your expected same result as you had in previous years with sprint races where you have, this is kind of what happens in the sprint race, and this is going to happen, or this is what we know is going to happen in the race because this is what happened in the sprint race.
Right.
Because everybody's got the same setup as they did previously. So that's all different now.
Right.
Potentially. Obviously, if the teams want to make changes. Get into the sprint race, so we get into the qualifying. A couple notes.
Yeah.
So it rained in, what do you want to call it? SQ2, Sprint Qualifying 2 session.
Kind of right at the end of it.
Yeah. Basically, you could get one lap in, and then if you didn't get your one good lap in right away at the beginning of the second qualifying session, you were kind of out.
Yeah. Which happened to George Russell.
Yes. Yeah, he did. He was out of
SQ2.
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't really set a realistic time because he couldn't get the dry tires down.
Yep. Yep. And then Lando actually ended up on pole for the sprint race.
Yeah.
In the wet conditions.
Very quick.
He's been good in wet weather qualifying. And right behind him was Lewis Hamilton. Well, right behind him was almost 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair. Lando, it was kind of funny though, in that Q3, Lando kept going off track until his last final run. He got a good lap and he was quick throughout the whole thing. He just couldn't keep it in bounds kind of at the last corner. And then he finally did his last lap.
I think Max had the same problem.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yep. But that was, throughout the lap, he had issues. But so Lando qualified first, Hamilton second, third was Alonso. Yeah, big surprise there. Not. And Max was fourth. So that was kind of fun to see. And both Saubers were actually in Q3. So that was cool to see for Zhou in his home race.
Yeah.
Sprint race, Max wins.
Yep.
I mean, just kind of kept showing the dominance of the Red Bull. I think he passed Lewis Hamilton with like 10 laps to go.
Yeah.
And then he pulled out like 15 seconds in, I don't know, 6-7 laps.
Yeah. Because Lando ended up losing a bunch of...
Right at the start.
Yeah. He went wide and ended up down in like P6 at the end of the... Basically,
the first corner.
Turn 4, yeah.
Yeah.
And then... So Lewis was leading the sprint race for almost the entire...
For about halfway.
Yeah. And then Max passed him and...
disappeared
off into the sunset.
But there was a good battle with Alonso and Sainz with a few laps to go.
Yeah, Alonso, Sainz, Leclerc, and Perez.
Yep.
They're having like this big 4-way battle. And Perez ended up like passing 2 people in one corner and ended up gaining third place.
Yeah, because of the Alonso Sainz battle, I think they had 2 or 3 consecutive corners where they were side by side and made contact. Alonso they give Alonso a penalty for one of them, I think for forcing a driver off track or something like that. And Perez just snuck through, no problem, just picked up the pieces and ended up, I believe, P3 in the sprint race.
Yep. But then Alonso ended up having to pit and he didn't score any points.
Yeah, I think he got a flat rear front.
Yeah.
Yep.
Zhou missed P9. He missed a point by finishing P9.
Which would have been the first point.
The first point. So it's a little unfortunate for him. Sauber ended up having a good weekend and coming out with nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, less than nothing.
Yeah.
So disappointing. I know we'll get to some of the other stuff around it, but as far as the sprint race goes, Zhou just missed out.
Yep. Yeah, okay. He had a good sprint, but just missed out on there. Let's get into qualifying a little bit.
Right. So a bunch of drivers made some changes after that sprint race, being like, all right, this is what I learned during the race.
Yep.
Let's make some changes. And
most notably, Lewis Hamilton didn't get out of Q1.
No. Made all those changes and it made his car slower.
Yes. Much slower. He ended up 18th. He had a hard time rotating the car in basically every corner throughout the entire qualifying and the race. He had a big lock up at the last hairpin, which really got him out of Q1 right away. But he had a tough Saturday, Sunday after his sprint qualifying where he finished second.
And he was very vocal about that on the radio during qualifying in the race. Just very disappointed in the car and everything. And
I think he was behind Alpine, and he was making some comments that he couldn't
even pass them.
Yeah, couldn't pass them, and it's like, well, if you're stuck behind Alpine this year,
it's the slowest car. Yeah.
You're in trouble, especially on a straight. But disappointing qualifying for Hamilton.
I don't remember many other standouts. Max
was on pole. Perez was second. Lando third.
Was third. And
Alonso was fourth. Yeah. So
Lando's third. Yeah. And then fifth was Russell or Sainz.
Leclerc.
Yeah.
And then Sainz was behind him. Yep. Russell, Piastri. That sounds right.
Hulk, Bottas or something.
Yes.
Because they were also in Q3.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. It was a fun, honestly, the qualifying was quite good after, I seem to remember in Q3, Max was pretty much a foregone conclusion on pole, but as the drivers were crossing the line, everyone continued to just bump whoever was in P2.
Yeah.
And it was just this merry-go-round of who was going to actually line up next to him, and it was Perez at the very last.
Right.
I think it was last lap. Ended up setting that P2 time, and that was quite it. It was exciting. You don't get points for it, but as a viewer,
yeah, it was fun. Yeah,
it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's always more entertaining when you have stuff like that in qualifying. You know, when you already know that kind of Max has figured it out for the weekend, and that's where he is. But
yeah,
it's fun to have a little mix up in the middle. Right?
Absolutely.
Getting to the race here, kind of an interesting race there were a couple of safety cars involved, but we can start out with Max winning the race in Red Bull.
Yeah, Max won the race, no surprise. If there hadn't been any safety cars, he probably would have won the race by about 75 seconds.
Would have felt that way.
He had a great start off the line, ended up getting to the first corner complex in first, and by the turn 6-7, he was like honestly a full second out in front of Perez. He was just gone.
Norris, I think Norris got past Perez at the beginning.
It was,
but yeah,
Verstappen was gone.
Yeah,
by the end of the first sector.
Yeah.
There was some tussles behind all that. I think Hulkenberg lost some places. Stroll ended up making a bunch of places on the start.
Normal for him because he usually starts out of position.
Yep. Notably, Hamilton made up no positions on the start.
He went down one. I think right away.
19th, yeah.
Yeah, and the only person that was behind was Sargent, who started from the pit lane. I was like, whoa. That
was bad.
Yeah.
That's bad. Maybe he was just trying to stay out of like that chaos on the first corner,
which is a pretty chaotic corner, but it looks fun.
Looks great.
Fun to watch.
Looks great. But yeah, as it turns out, Max won. He won from pole. Like you mentioned the safety cars, he did not really have any problems navigating the bunching up of the field after the safety cars. He
made his one pit stop I think before the safety car.
Yeah, lost the lead for like 2 or 3 laps. And then when Norris pitted during the first safety car or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Max didn't lead every lap of the race, but
virtually he
did. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a very strong win for him. Red Bull seemed to be just firing on all cylinders.
Yep. Max is back at it 2 weeks in a row now and looking for another one in Miami in a couple weeks. Sergio Perez, P3 this weekend. He kind of got jumped by Norris at the start.
Yep.
He pitted before the safety car as well, where Norris ended up staying out and pitting during the safety car. So Norris, I believe, kept his position in front of Perez. I want to say. I don't know if that's right, but I want to say he did from the safety car.
I can't remember because I seem to remember that the Red Bulls double stacked, and so Perez would have just come out right behind Verstappen, but maybe I don't remember how that went. Because maybe Norris couldn't pit because he had just gone past. He had just
gone past. Yes, correct.
He pitted out of cycle, so Perez pitted first.
Yes, but Perez was already behind him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know how it worked out then.
I can't remember. What happens, way, man? Yeah.
After all the safety car nonsense, Perez ended up finishing
third.
So Norris ended up keeping that P2.
Yeah, I think he was stuck behind Leclerc too for a little bit.
Yeah,
he was. Leclerc's only pit stop was during the safety car as well, where I think both Red Bulls pitted twice. That's what happened. Yep, because they pitted early and then they pitted at the safety car, where Leclerc and Norris both pitted only during the safety car. But yeah, Perez P3, a decent weekend. I believe he finished second in the sprint race, or third in the sprint race.
Yep,
behind Hamilton. Yep. So decent weekend for him. You know, he's still hanging on to Max, kind of. I think he's like 20 points, 25 points behind him right now. I don't know, but not that really feels relevant at this point.
No, it doesn't.
Let's get into McLaren. We kind of talked about Lando Norris a little bit, and he finished P2 in the race.
Mm-hmm. After a bad start, ended up reclaiming some good points by finishing P2.
Yeah, did really well. They were obviously really good on tire wear this weekend for whatever reason. I don't know, track specific or something with some of the changes. I don't know. But yeah, they did really well. Norris had a great weekend, drove a great race, ended up P2.
Yeah. Piastri wasn't able to match Norris. He ended up finishing P8 during the race. He had some damage after the restart, but even before that, he didn't look to be matching Norris's pace at this circuit. Now, Piastri's never driven here. Norris has
once
his
rookie year, but it
still
matters
more than Piastri, who's never been there. I mean, I'm sure they both put a lot of time in at the sim, but either way, I'm sure the conditions for the weekend, like you said, it was weird. It rained, the track got all wet.
Sprint weekend.
Was it set up compromised from the beginning? Did he go down a different path that just didn't work for him? Don't know. But not to scoff at P8. I mean, he'll take the points. The team wants him to score those points. He wants to score the points. I think the car clearly was capable of a P2, so maybe he could have gotten some more, but
damage didn't help him.
But
we can get into that.
We'll get into that. But no, he had a good weekend as well. No fumbling. Ferrari.
Charles Leclerc finished P4, I believe.
Yep.
He had another solid race. I think he finished P4 in the sprint as well, in front of Sainz, pretty much all weekend.
Yep.
Other than, all weekend.
Leclerc had a very...
He was quiet weekend for him.
But P4 twice over.
Yeah. I mean, third best car on the weekend, felt like, kind of all weekend anyways.
Yeah.
Norris qualified him both times.
Yeah.
Behind the Red Bulls as well, so...
Alonso's Aston Martin was probably
qualifying pace.
Yeah.
Versus race pace.
Yeah. The race pace was compromised.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His puncture during the sprint, the bad strategy call in the second one. Like, he was in front of them for a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe that wouldn't have happened over the course of the whole race, but I don't know.
Arguably third, fourth.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah. Good weekend for Leclerc. Snag some points. Carlos Sainz, P5. I think it was P6 in the sprint, I want to say, after all or P5 maybe as well.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Solid weekend for him. Not where he's been. Every other race he's finished. He's been on the podium so far this year. Just not this one.
Did not extend that streak to this weekend. The Ferrari didn't have that same sort of lightning pace that we've seen them have at the last four races. It felt like either this track didn't suit their car or something just wasn't clicking for them, or the other teams that finished in front of them were just really clicking this weekend, which it really looked like Red Bull were clicking, and so same with McLaren.
Yeah, and Alonso's.
Yeah.
Really. But still, P5, nothing to scoff at.
No.
Good weekend for Ferrari, I think, overall. I think they'll take that moving into Miami.
Yeah.
Into a more, stable environment, I guess, per se. Mercedes, Russell, P6. Felt like kind of a quiet day for him. I know he had some passes, but that's mostly due to, pitting early and kind of just being out of position that way. But yeah, kind of quiet weekend for him, although he had 2 solid finishes this weekend. Hamilton, P9, after his disastrous qualifying. And kind of, as we talked about earlier, complaining a little bit about the car, but it sounds like the setup changes were his idea, which he I think he apologized for as well on the radio.
Qualified poorly. Talks about how poor the car is, and he still made up 9 positions.
Yeah.
So take that with a pinch of salt, but if at the end of the first lap, if you're P19 and then you make up 10 positions during the race, yes, there were retirements, but dude got 2 points for that finish, bringing home a car that he said was completely undrivable.
Right. But those 2 points could matter at the end of the season. Absolutely. It did last year.
Yep.
So good finish for him in the end, although he probably did not enjoy that Sunday at all.
No, he'll want to forget this weekend.
Well, the Saturday wasn't too bad, but the first part of Saturday.
Yeah, he was leading for a bit. Yeah, no, you're right.
But yeah, the race he'll definitely want to forget about and qualifying.
Yeah. Lewis does not like finishing behind Max under any circumstances.
I mean,
yeah. He'll be forgetting about this or using it for motivation.
Aston Martin.
Let's talk about Aston Martin.
So let's start with the good. Fernando Alonso, P7. I guess I don't know how good that is considering how his qualifying was.
Right.
Starting P4 for the race, and he pitted for softs during the safety car.
The first safety car. which seemed an interesting choice even then.
Yeah, and like, maybe you could make it work because if you didn't have a secondary safety car.
Right, you probably thought, all right, everyone's going to pit again. We'll put some softs on.
We'll offset the hards, and we'll take another stop and make up all the positions later.
Right. But that didn't work.
No, because there was a second safety car very shortly after
Immediately after.
Yeah. Didn't really work out for him. He did pit later. He put on another set of softs, right? Or a set of mediums.
Put on a set of mediums with like 12 or 13 laps to go.
Yep. Got the fastest lap. He made up, I think, all positions but 2.
Yeah. I think he pitted. You're right. I think you're right. He pitted from P5 or something.
I want to say, yeah. I made all positions up but 2, and he wasn't going to catch Russell with the amount of laps left for 6th. But yeah, it was kind of up and down weekend for him. Qualified really well both days.
Yep. Both
races went iffy in the end for him, but I mean, Aston Martin's going to take the points where they can at this point. Considering what Lance Stroll is doing.
Yeah, Lance, he missed out on Q2. He was eliminated during Q1, yeah?
Was he? No, did he make Q? I think he made Q2.
Oh, did he?
Okay. Q3.
I think he started
P15
or something like that.
Yeah.
But during the first safety car restart, he was part of a group of drivers that ended up having a very fast Constantina effect where they all were braking
for the hairpin.
Each one braking slightly with less time between each driver in front of them. So it's like the reaction times had to be high. He just couldn't stop his car fast enough and went right into the back of Daniel Ricciardo.
By right into the back, what do you mean?
Daniel Ricciardo's car was about 5 feet off the ground.
So you're saying Lance Stroll's car was a ramp for Daniel Ricciardo?
Yeah, because...
Except Ricciardo was going forwards.
Yeah, he got rammed, and then his whole rear end was in the air
and this is where Piastri got his damage as well, because Ricciardo's front end
hit into the back of
Piastri's car.
Yeah. But Lance was not looking forward. He was looking to the side.
They interviewed Ricciardo after the race, and somebody told him that, Lance called him an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And, whatever happened on the radio, you can misdrew it. But, yeah, Ricciardo wasn't happy. They showed him he watched the onboard of Lance Stroll's, and he's like, yeah, Lance is looking at the apex of the corner where the rest of us are looking at the car in front of us because we can't pass them until the start-finish line anyways.
Right.
And we're 2 corners away from that. 2. So, yeah.
It ruined Lance's race. It ruined Piastri's race, and it ruined Daniel's race. Daniel ended up not finishing.
Yeah, he DNF'd after getting passed by basically everybody in the next 2 laps.
When he got into the pit, Ted I was listening to the Sky commentary. I don't know what you were listening to. But they saw Ricciardo's car come in, and just half of his diffuser was just gone.
I'm sure.
Because it's stuck in the
because the other car's front wing was underneath it.
Right. It's stuck in the wing of Lance Stroll's Aston Martin. It's just silly, man.
Yeah, Lance ended up getting a 10-second penalty for that.
Great.
And that's it, essentially. He got to keep going because his car...
Right.
Yeah, he had front wing damage. He came into pit immediately.
He ruined his race.
Yeah.
He ruined Piastri's race. He ruined Ricciardo's race.
Yeah.
And he ruined Alonso's race because now there's a second safety car.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Or they're attempted. I guess I don't know if you can really call it. But yeah, the attempt of a, soft tire run. And
either way. It screwed up everything.
Yeah.
Screwed up everything.
And he kind of doesn't see it as his fault either, is what it sounds
At
like.
Least the initial reaction. Yeah, we'll see if during the next 2 days or something he comes out and says he's sorry or something because...
Yeah, I haven't seen any interviews with him afterwards. I don't know.
And maybe these two just sort it out between themselves and just say hey, what
I messed up,
bad,
Because
that's really what should happen. It just...
Yeah.
Because Lance Stroll's, like you said, Lance Stroll, unless he does that every weekend, he's not going anywhere.
Right. Oh, and he hasn't been great this year either. I think he's had one decent race.
His average finishing position is outside the points.
Yeah, I think he's got like one P7 or 6 or something this year so far. Yeah.
Alonso is doing all the work.
Well, he did last year too.
No, I think that it's not quite as fair. He did a majority of the work last year. This year, he's doing almost literally all of it.
Yeah, he's doing more this year.
Yes.
Comparatively.
Yes.
And that's
because like Lance was finishing like P5 and P6 last year.
A couple times. No, a couple times.
In the beginning part of the season.
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay.
A couple times. I'm not a Lance Stroll hater, but recently he's been
bad.
Not been great. And for them to want to keep him is.
Yeah. They could sign Carlos Sainz.
Yeah. I know it's Papa Stroll, owns the team really, but.
Yeah, he bought the team so that his son could keep racing.
Essentially.
Yeah.
This is year like 7 or 8 for him, if you can believe it.
There's nothing wrong with that. Also.
No, there isn't.
That's what
Have
he
you
wants
got the
to
money?
do with his money?
Right.
He bought the whole car brand Aston Martin.
Yeah, he did.
He can afford this. Either way.
Tough race for Stroll.
Yeah.
Tough race for Ricciardo. Tough race for Piastri.
Yeah.
Tough race for Aston Martin.
Tough race for the Hulk.
Haas.
Hulk with a P10 finish, getting that point.
Getting that Lance Stroll point.
Heck yeah.
That's what we're calling now, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hulkenberg kind of seemed like a solid race. He got
a good weekend.
Yeah.
And Q3.
Qualified well.
Yeah.
He got past Daniel Ricciardo and Lance Stroll during their altercation during the safety car, which, I forgot to mention.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo got, we can get to that later.
We'll get that when we get to
We'll get to that later. But Hulkenberg got past those two at the restart, and that's where he ended up in P10.
Yeah.
And he just
stayed
pat. Yeah. I think he had an Alpine behind him, which helps hold everybody else up.
Oh, yeah. And you can't have Kevin Magnussen holding up everyone behind you. The next best thing
is an Alpine. Doesn't matter which one. But yeah, great for Haas. I think this Hulk's got like 5 points on the year, 4 points, 5 points.
4 points. So all P10 finishes, right?
No, he's got one
P9,
I think.
Okay.
But yeah, he's had a good start of the year for sure. Haas had a good start of the year.
They haven't been imploding.
Yeah, which is kind of a little surprising with new changes and stuff. But with
hopefully they can keep growing and keep this momentum moving, and
maybe Gene Haas will show up to a race in Miami.
No, he won't.
You're probably right.
I think if Gene Haas was going to go to a race, it would be Texas.
Yeah, that's the one he usually shows face at because they usually do like a livery and whatever else. But that's right. Kevin Magnussen, P16. He took out the other V-Carb RB Toro Rosso after the first safety car. He was pretty clumsy. He was kind of had a haphazard dive at Yuki at one of the corners and kind of was just next to him at an exit and kind of just I don't know, Yuki had to come back towards the track and just,
they
made
clattered,
contact.
Yeah. And then Yuki spun or got a flat or something.
Yeah, well, both, I think.
Yeah. And Magnussen just kept on driving like he didn't even know Yuki was there, but like he very clearly.
Yuki was in front of him.
Yeah, he knew.
It was pretty obvious.
And even like Nico Hulkenberg was like, oh, that's a penalty. Straight penalty.
Oh, Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, sorry. Who was doing the commentating as well.
Yeah, so tough weekend for K-Mag. He didn't do a whole lot this weekend. Tough qualifying, both sessions, I think, and just not really on the pace of his teammate. We can get into Alpine, which actually, I know we've been ragging on him even this podcast, but had their best finish of the year with a P11 from Ocon and a P13 from Gasly.
Importantly, both cars finished.
Yes.
Also importantly, that is solid finish for them.
Yes.
This is the direction they need to be going.
Yeah.
So
hopefully they're on their way. Yeah.
They kind of had like uneventful weekend in terms of, they weren't ramming into people. They weren't catching penalties. They weren't crashing their cars. They weren't having questionable strategy calls. They were just getting their race on, doing the things they needed to do, staying out of trouble, keep bringing their cars home, having good pit stops. That's also key this year because some teams can't do that. So all things considered, that's a good result for them, despite not having actual points.
It's a really good result.
Yeah.
So, a P11, a P13.
They had some luck with some of the other cars not finishing the race. But
yeah, some DNFs, but that's part of the racing, right? Part of F1. So, yeah, decent weekend for them. Williams, positive. No crashes this weekend.
That's a big positive. Yep.
Huge for them. Don't have to spend money on fixing a chassis, and now they might have a spare for Miami. We'll see. Rumor has it they will. They got some close walls there, so better look out.
Oh, boy.
Albon, P12. Also didn't finish the points in the sprint race, so kind of another weekend where they're kind of just, I don't know, kind of felt like they were just kind of there as well.
Yeah.
Although I did like his helmet.
Albon's?
Yeah.
Yeah, great helmet.
The Panda helmet was cool with the little smile.
Helmet was great. Sargent had a good weekend, brought the car home, didn't crash.
Yeah, he got a weird penalty with passing K-Mag during the safety car.
That seemed very harsh because it's so difficult.
It's almost
to
hard
describe.
to explain. Yes. Yeah.
There's a line right at the pit exit is a line for I don't even know what the start line.
It's like a.
Is it just?
It's like a pit exit. Let's call it a timing line. Yes, a pit exit timing line, which goes from the actual racetrack all the way through the end of the pit exit line.
Right. So cars exiting the pit and cars running down the main straight would both cross this physical line.
Correct.
And so the guy on the straight is going very fast, and the guy coming out of the pits is speeding up. They're both trying to reach this line first. It is a race to this line.
Yes.
It's not the finish line, but it's a race to this line. These cars are so low. You can't see it. You have no idea. Sargent's going fast. There's a barrier wall. He can't see that Magnussen's coming out.
Right.
All of a sudden, you would need to literally freeze frame and go frame by frame through what we saw to see who crossed the line first.
Which is apparently what the stewards did.
Oh, they had plenty of time, I guess, wherever they were sitting. Because they went through it with a fine-tooth comb and decided to penalize Sargent for this, despite him.
Because what ended up happening was K-Mag hit the line first, technically. Logan Sargent goes by him because there's a corner there as well. Yeah. There's a right-hand corner.
He had more speed.
He had more speed. He had the overspeed going past him by like a lot. Yes. Because you're coming out of pit lane, you're not up to speed.
Right.
Goes past him. There's no way of knowing if you're Logan Sargent that you did not beat K-Mag to the line. Right. The only way that you would know is if the team looked back, which, yeah, should it be on the team to look at? I guess so. But in this circumstance, it was like they almost hit the line at the same time.
Yep. And if you reviewed that, if you were part of that team and you looked at that, you might have said, it's too close to call. I have no idea.
Right.
Just keep the position.
FIA give him a 10-second penalty.
10-second penalty.
Yeah.
And he loses all his time.
Yeah.
Because he pitted then, and then they couldn't touch the car for 10 seconds. And so he had like a 40-second pit stop.
Right.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great. That's silly. It's a silly penalty.
It is.
Especially for down there.
It's so hard to see.
You can't see. But also, like,
I almost feel like that's on the stewards to say, or the FIA to say, oh, you need to switch places before the restart.
Correct.
I think they do that in NASCAR.
Safety car, yes.
I want to say they do that in NASCAR where they tell you, oh, well, you need to be in this position because you hit the timing line after the other car, even though you had the overspeed.
Dumb.
But yeah, I agree. I think that was a little crazy. But P17 for Sargent. Sauber. So Joe's home race ended up P14 in the end. The crowd was really cheering for him on a lot of those passes. I think him and K-Mag were battling, and one of the Alpines as well. I think Gasly or something. They were going back and forth for a while.
Yeah, you could hear the whole complex erupt in cheers whenever Joe passed someone. And it happened, I can remember twice, I think.
At least 2 or 3 times, yeah. It was pretty cool to see.
Very good moments for him.
Yeah, had a strong kind of finish to his race. He's limited by his car. That's just kind of all it is. Ends up P14.
Yeah.
And he had his own parking spot and the front straightaway behind the top 3 finishers.
Yep. They had a special spot just for him. Didn't say first, didn't say second, didn't say third, just said Joe.
Yeah.
his picture on it, right down the front straight. Everyone there in attendance cheering him on, singing his name.
Yeah, it was super cool to see. It was super
cool, and he was very emotional about it. I mean, I know it would be a big deal for most drivers to be cheered like that at your home race.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's a really unique circumstance too. They were supposed. This is Joe's third year in F1.
Yep.
He should have had 2 other home races.
Yeah.
Didn't happen because of COVID.
Yep.
Finally got back. He's still in F1 currently. Gets a home race. China's a big market, right? They've been racing at China for over 20 years now.
He was in attendance for the very first one in 2004, waving a Fernando Alonso flag.
Right, who was on his helmet, which is cool.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's a big deal. And I think it was one of the nicer things I've seen, you know, Liberty Media do. You know, whether or not it's to, you know, make more money for themselves or whatever it is, but it was a cool thing to see F1 do. I'm not saying they should do it all the time, but I think this was a very unique circumstance where I think it really paid off, and it was a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
Emotionally, it was cool. You know, Joe certainly appreciated it as well.
Absolutely. No, I think it was a great moment. I was very happy to see it myself, and it seemed like a lot of other people were very happy with it too.
Yeah. Bottas, DNF. He's the one that caused that first safety car engine failure. I think he was running 10th or 11th at the time.
He was doing well at the time, but his engine just started smoking, and it was toast.
Another Bottas weekend. That's a pretty terrible look.
Oh, the poor guy.
Pit stops, DNFs. None of that are really his fault so far. Yeah, it's a tough weekend for him. V-Carb, Toro Rosso, Red Bull.
Double DNF for them.
Yeah. I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but Ricardo, you know, getting slammed by Lance Stroll wasn't his only problem.
No.
In the end, he also got a 3-place grid penalty for Miami.
Yeah.
So what happened was, we kind of touched on it earlier, where Hulk passed Stroll and Ricardo after the incident before they, you know, crossed the start-finish line. What ended up happening was Ricardo then got back up to Hulk at some point and thought he deserved the place back, which
because he was started
right
again,
which I could see and I could understand as a driver, but because there was an incident, and I don't know if there's a timing thing or what, I don't know what the exact rules are, but if there's incident with a driver in front of you, you're allowed to pass them, you know, whatever the regulation is up to a certain period, blah, 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 blah. So Ricardo gets past Hulkenberg because he thinks it's his position, which it was at one point, but technically is no longer, gets a 3-place penalty.
Because he overtook onto the safety car.
Yeah.
Despite him thinking he was just taking his
position back.
Yeah.
So really unfortunate for him for the next race, and Lance Stroll basically gets off scot-free.
Yeah. Because he did cause a collision, but they only gave him a 10-second penalty. But I guess overtaking under a safety car is more dangerous, thus a more severe penalty than crashing into
rear-ending somebody during a safety car.
Yeah. Difficult to swallow that one. I don't know. Ricardo outqualified his teammate for the first time this year.
Both times
in the in the sprint qualifying and the main qualifying. He was running in like 11th at the time of his crash or something, 10th, somewhere in there. Could have, you know, maybe he was out of sync with some of the pit stops. We don't know. We're having trouble exactly remembering all of that, but that was a good weekend, and I think he can come away thinking he had a good weekend as well, despite not finishing, despite coming out with a penalty for next weekend. He's just got it's a long season. There's like 20-some races left, 19 races left.
Yep.
He's just got to sort of
head down.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yep.
Because he, at least this weekend, he proved he's faster than
Yuki. Yeah, Yuki had a tough weekend.
Yuki had a very tough weekend because he also DNF'd.
Yeah, but that also wasn't his fault.
Also not his fault.
But yeah, Yuki DNFs with the Kevin Magnussen incident.
Yeah.
But yeah, got all qualified by Ricardo both times. Outfinished by him both times, other than, I mean, they both DNF, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter.
So yeah, tough weekend for V-Carb, Toro Rosso, Racing Bulls. What else do you want? Visa, Cash App?
Minardi.
Winners and losers this weekend. What do you got?
Winners, I would say Max. He just continues to prove he's dominant, and beyond dominant. I no longer think that word truly describes what we're witnessing, and it's going to be difficult for us to really try and I don't think we're capable of really describing it.
It's going to be one of those where you look back on it and you're like, did that really happen?
Yeah. I mean, there's like some statistics out there like George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon for a little bit, very little bit, Lando Norris, the amount of podiums they have without race wins, the amount of pole positions they have without race wins. Some of this is their cars. Some of it's been the strategy calls. But like Lando Norris has 15 podiums and no wins. And in a world where one car isn't head and shoulders dominating everyone, I mean, it's like a different category.
It is.
There's Formula 1 and then there's Formula 0.1.
And it's Max.
And it's Max.
Yeah.
And then Formula 0.5 is Perez. And then
sometimes.
Right. Well, yeah. And then you start Formula 1 with the rest.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's absurd. So I would say winners, Max. Losers would be safety car restarts and determinations for safety cars. That's my losers for the weekend. No idea.
That's fair. Yeah, because that Bottas engine failure was so strange. I think they were under a
double wave yellow for a while.
Virtual safety car for like 3 laps.
Yep.
It felt like.
Yep.
Then they went to a safety car.
They didn't even call the virtual safety car for like a whole 3
because Bottas was on track. He was getting out of his car, and you could see the cars coming at him.
Yeah, and they were still racing.
Yeah.
Didn't like seeing that.
No.
I couldn't see the runoff area there. If there was a little like slip road for them to try and wheel it, I don't think they knew that the car was locked in gear.
Yeah, stuck in gear, yeah.
And like, if it hadn't been locked in gear, you would have just needed the virtual safety car and just like, all right, we'll just wheel it around. It's fine, done and dusted. But then once they realized that it required the full safety car, I don't mind that one. I think what I'm trying to get at is the safety car was long, yes, not necessarily the steward's fault, but then this whole, you can't, like the crashing into one another, the concertina effect, the person in first deciding when they go and making it sort of like a game, the whole like Ricardo overtaking, not overtaking, the Sargent penalty because he didn't get to the line first, despite the fact no one would have ever known. Then the double, like a safety car immediately after the first safety car, everyone's out of position. Everyone's like, okay, are we going to pit again? The strategy we just put into place screws us. It just felt, it was exciting in a way.
Yeah.
But it felt like those who got punished hard for no fault of their own.
Yeah. And which sometimes happens in racing.
It's true.
But it almost felt extreme during this race with some of the things.
Yes. If I was in control of F1, I would circle that for the weekend and say, can we brainstorm something better to do? Maybe not. Maybe this is the best we got.
Like the penalties that have, like Sargent's penalty.
Right. It just seemed inconsistent.
Ricardo's penalty.
Yeah.
You know, just tell him he's got to go back. That's it.
Right.
It's not that hard. Tell somebody.
Tell him.
I understand that you put some regulations in recently because of the Max Hamilton stuff, whatever, you know, where it's up to you to give the position back but like there's an easy way to fix it. Just
tell the drivers where they're supposed to go.
Just tell it.
Yeah.
I mean, and these are like finite things, right? Like a line is a finite thing. Did Sargent beat him to the line? Yes or no?
Have his dash tell him.
Yeah.
You could just have
a
running order
position
display on your dash.
Right. It's like if you're playing the F1 game, give the position back.
Yeah.
It'll tell you. Like, yeah, not everything's right. But like, come on. Just do it. It's not that hard.
Not that hard.
But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you're picking on what I'm putting down, but that would be my loser for the weekend. How about you? What do you got?
My winners go a little bit off book here. We'll go with Joe having a home race. I think that was cool.
Yeah.
I think after having to wait longer than most, where there is a track on the calendar that is there, and having a home race, there's a lot of pressure on him. he said to himself he had a lot of pressure for him to just like finish the race, and you could just see the relief and like, oh
Yeah.
not that it's over, but like, oh, it was fun. Like he got to be there. He was in China for basically immediately after, Suzuka. So yeah, that's my winner. Good for him.
Choice.
He got a home race.
That's a great winner.
Losers, I mean, it feels like there's a lot. Really, I mean, V-Carb you can say because they got nothing out of the weekend.
Yeah, that would be a good choice.
You could say, Bottas, bad luck again. You can say, I don't know, Aston Martin because they're tough luck. Bad strategy calls, Stroll's issues.
Hamilton.
Yeah, you could say Hamilton. He had a tough weekend, but he did well in the sprint race. Yeah, I guess those are all my losers. Really.
No, I think it's a good point. A lot of weird, not big, but just oddball things happen that aren't necessarily like severely notable or like, oh, we should fix that, but like, that's peculiar, and you wouldn't normally expect that.
Yeah. I did like having China back on the calendar.
Agreed.
I think it was fun to have that track back there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just, we haven't seen it in a while. But I think it's better than having some of these gimmicky street tracks. I know we're just adding it onto the calendar versus removing one of them. Because it was just canceled, a couple years in a row. But like, it was nice having it there.
Yeah, there's like 3 street circuits that you could just remove.
And you wouldn't notice.
You wouldn't care.
No. Yeah.
Having races like China or even Malaysia, which has been gone for a long time, or a race in Germany, which we haven't had, having lost France on real circuits.
Yeah, real circuit.
Real race circuits.
Not power car.
Yeah, it just like, I don't care that you're running down the middle of like some grand avenue in the middle of oil country X. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Running through an Olympic Village or running through the football stadium of Miami, the parking lot of Miami,
right?
Hard Rock Cafe Stadium.
Cool.
Not cool.
We'll see what Madrid has to offer next year.
Or
2 years. Sorry.
Right. There's on one end of the spectrum for these street circuits. There's something like Singapore, Australia, maybe Baku.
Yep. I do enjoy Baku.
I enjoy Baku too.
Most of the time.
That can be a controversial take.
Sometimes. We talked about it. But yeah, check out
on the other end, yeah, you got like Sochi, which thank goodness it's gone. Miami, the Las Vegas circuit. They're nothings. Monaco to an extent.
Yeah.
Monaco's cool for the qualifying. But the rest
Miami isn't cool for qualifying.
Miami is not cool at all, except for the helmet designs, and even then they missed the mark.
Yeah, well, that basketball one, I did not land those.
Woof. Anyway, this is off topic.
But, yeah. I just wanted to touch on. I was happy to see race back at China because I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun. I brought a different dynamic back to F1 that we haven't seen in a while.
Yep.
There's a lot of unknowns going into it. It was a sprint weekend on top of it, so just a little bit more drama. Let's say
more drama,
more entertainment for fans.
Good speed, good views, lots of fans. Love to see it. Congratulations to Zhou Guanyu on his first home race.
Yeah. And we'll see you in Miami in 2 weeks, huh?
See you after Miami.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to another Pit Lane podcast. This has been your host, Jordan Wynn, Alden K-Wall, and we'll see you after Miami.
See you next time.